Hey guys, welcome to this Train Sim TV video. Today we're taking a look at the Berks and Hants with Bristol to Penzance route, a merger between the railways of Devon and Cornwall, South Western Expressways and the South Western Expressways to Reading route. Going to go into that in detail in a minute. Just going to read what's on the screen before it disappears, and that's good evening driver. We're currently around 24 minutes late on arrival at Reading. Please press T to open the doors and prepare for departure. We'll call at Newbury, Hungerford, Bedwin, Pewsey, Westbury, Castlecary, Taunton and Everton Parkway en route to Exeter. From Exeter, we'll run ECS to Plymouth and Lara Depot. Worth noting this was 43098 and 43092's last working before they went to Doncaster for a repaint into GWR livery. So, now that I've read that, I'm trying to do voiceovers whilst I'm doing the video here. So the video's already been done and I'm trying to speak fast enough before the message was taken off the screen. I couldn't do the talking and everything at the same time, so essentially is what I'm saying. So, at the moment you're seeing me go into the back cab there, faffing about with the ETS because I forgot to put it on the actual number string. So we've got that out of the way, setting up our train here at Reading. So this route is a merger, as I said, between the railways of Devon and Cornwall route by high-speed tracks. It's then merged onto the South Western Expressways route from Just Trains, and the freeware update to that, the South Western Expressways to Reading route by Martin Masterson. So what this does is it adds all those into one route. You get what is called the BHBP route, Berks and Hants with Bristol to Penzance, and it all comes into one route, so you can finally drive all the way from Reading to Penzance in one route via the actual main route, which is the Berks and Hants, rather than the Western Main Line's way of going through Bristol. Now, I know everyone's going to be asking for Paddington and saying, well, you can't do it from London. That might come at a later date. There's been discussions about that from the chaps involved, so maybe that'll come one day, although I won't make any promises because I know that it's not something that's necessarily going to happen. I'm just going to answer the fact that I know everyone's going to comment saying, well, what about going to Penzance? They've heard the comments, but it's a case of how easy and whatever it is to do. So there's potential for it to happen. Whether it will or not is another matter. The main issue with Western Main Lines is that line itself is like half a mile out on Google Maps, or even more. It's like 2 miles in some places, so it's really hard to merge that on because it's inaccurate essentially, because it was built, I think, before overlays were put in. And then the other option is the original Coogee route, which would need a hell of a lot of work to make it worthwhile, both of which would take a long time to do, and we thought people would prefer to have this route together now rather than wait, let's say, a year or longer for a full version. You're only missing 20 odd miles at the end of the day. So scenery wise, you've got the route from Reading right through to Liskeard with no breaks in scenery at all. I'm going to put a route map on the screen in a second as well, so you can see that, and then I'm going to delve into the history of some of the route and whatnot as we go along. But as I say, this is a merger between the routes that I mentioned before. I'm currently heading out of Reading onto the Berks and Hants route, passing the site of Reading Depot. This is the South Western Expressways to Reading Electrified version of the route, because keeping in theme with railways of Devon and Cornwall, it's up to the current standard in terms of the scenery you see is as it is in 2020. So I chose this scenario. I made the scenario for the release version of the route, and the reason I made it is because it's got quite an interesting stopping pattern. It stops at quite a few stations on the Berks and Hants route, and then at Exeter it goes ECS through to Plymouth, and you actually follow a service through to Plymouth, and then at Plymouth you change ends and shunt ECS to Lara Depot, which is quite an unusual set of things to do. So whilst it does get dark as the scenario is going on, I think it's better to do this than just some random middle of the day train, which obviously people will be able to do anyway with their own scenarios, and hopefully we get plenty of scenarios using the entire route. I had no issues really making this one. It was quite easy to make. It was just quite a long process to do it because of the amount of distance you travel and the AI that you have to add in. But hopefully we'll see quite a few people add in their own scenarios. So here is the route map. As you can see, it's a pretty extensive sort of thing. Worth noting that this is the map of included track, which one day will have fully completed scenery in terms of what's completed at the moment. So at the moment with full scenery you can drive all the way from Reading to Liskeard, which is way down there. If you look west of Plymouth, you've got Liskeard about quarter of the way along to Penzance. So that is the mainline section that you've got with scenery already done. Obviously, South Western Expressways already covers the Westbury, Bath, Bristol, Taunton sort of area. The merge between the South Western Expressways route and railways to Devon and Cornwall is Whiteball Tunnel, so that's just past between Taunton and Everton Parkway in the middle of the screen there. So, as well as those that I've just mentioned, you also get fully scenery route to Honiton from Exeter Central. You get Exmouth branch, you get the Kinswear branch, you get Gunny's Lake. Heathfield also has full scenery, as does the route. And then at the Penzance end, as we've seen in other videos that we've done, there's also a number of sections there, but the main line scenery itself is not fully finished south of Liskeard. There's bits on there, such as the St Ives branch, that has got full scenery, and in due time they will all get full scenery and you will eventually be able to do the full journey from Reading to Penzance. This route will be getting rolling updates as time goes on. So at the moment we're currently heading along Martin Masterson's South Western Expressways to Reading Electrified route. This extension has been available for a few months from the same websites as the BHBP route. It's been available from Alan Thompson, Vulcan Productions and On Track Simulation. Just passing there, the site of Ufton Nervit, where the crash happened at the level crossing back in November 2004. There's a memorial garden there which Martin's included in memory of those who sadly lost their lives in that crash. So heading towards Newbury in this video. That'll be our first stop. Quite a challenging section of driving is this, with the amount of stops that you get between Reading and Westbury. You've got to keep quite sort of keen timings. So Simon's kindly given me a document to read through that gives a lot of sort of detail about the route, and I'll read that as I'm going along. So BHBP, as it is known, the Berks and Hants to Bristol and Penzance route, is a culmination of many hours of work, and that's firstly by DTG and the developers who made the South Western Expressway route that was published on Just Trains. Not forgetting those guys, obviously, because the railways of Devon and Cornwall and the South Western Expressways routes were originally based off of routes with RDC coming off Riviera Line and South Western Expressways, the extension to that to Reading by Martin. So without those routes you'd never have this BHBP route at all. So RDC, for those that don't know, it started as Devon Rails a good few years ago now, and that the first version was lost in a hard drive file, which obviously is a shame reading that there. I didn't actually know that myself. Simon hadn't backed it up either, so he lost it completely, which was a shame. And it included a recreated Withyard Arm line from Exeter to Plymouth via Roehampton. When that happened, it couldn't play TS again for about 3 months. Having recently lost a route myself there, it was a hard drive failure. I can imagine that. Yeah, I can understand that, because I lost a much smaller route and I still haven't got over the fact that I lost it. So I didn't know that had happened to Simon. That's a shame as well, because Exeter to Plymouth via Roehampton would have been mint, but yeah, that's a shame. So yeah, Devon Rails began with extending the stub of the Riviera line track from Exeter St David's up to Exeter Central and then onwards to Exmouth. So that's where it started. Was the first iteration was to get it up to Exmouth, and it's incredible to think what that's become. So at some point, happenstance led to Carl Minton introduce himself to Simon. They got involved, and between themselves they extended the route westwards from Newton Abbot to Plymouth and then eastwards to Taunton and Bristol. So obviously it started to expand out on its own, did the RDC route, before any sort of mergers or anything came about. And then Simon went about laying the track in mammoth sessions of midnight oil burning, and then we took turns, him and Callum took turns to add scenery and develop scenarios, and after that the track was laid to Axminster, Barnstaple and Oakhampton. So they get the track, what they do is they get the track obviously in first and then build around the track, which is a fair way to do it, I think. After that, Ash Clark got involved and was very helpful with fixing some signal issues and also some excellent scenarios that he developed for the Devon Rails as well as the Devon and Cornwall route, which was good to see. So we've just passed through Newbury Racecourse Station. We're coming up towards where the overhead lines end now, where they end at Newbury in the current times. So we're arriving into Newbury. And here we have to go across obviously onto the loop line with a 40 mph turnout on that as we go into the platform. Quick stop here, then it's back on our way again. getting back underway again now, so we get up to speed and then we're quickly going to have to slow down again. You got stops in sort of quick succession along this section. You got Hungerford, Bedwin, then Pewsey, and then you obviously got Westbury just after that. But from there it breaks up a little bit more. You got quite a long section then to Castle Carey, then down onto the Somerset levels before you arrive at Taunton, and then obviously up over Whitemore to Tiverton. And one of the beautiful things I think I found with this route, obviously, is just sort of how often it changes. It's quite level and flat and nice out of Reading and everything, and then it gets a bit more hilly as you get around Westbury area, then it levels off again, and then obviously you got Whitemore, and then you go down through Devon and you're going through the Rowan Hills, and you sort of feel like you're really going on a journey this route. Although the last part of it, certainly from extra onwards, feels almost like it's in slow motion because the speeds are so much lower than they are on this section where you can get over 100 miles an hour. So that's something that's interesting. So going back to Simon's document again, it says he doubts anyone that hasn't developed the detailed scenery test has much idea of how hard it is to do and how hard long it takes to get right, and certainly I can attest for that. It takes a long time. And it says as time went, obviously skills are considerably improved, which is natural. That's exactly what happens. Stretch between Totnes and Plymouth is the last bit of their early work on the RDC route, so that needs improving. Simon's already said before that he intends to do that, and Callum in the meantime also has improved himself and learned how to build 3D assets, and he's done some great work such as Truro Cathedral and station signs and Royal Albert Bridge, which is no mean feat, and then Long Rock Depot and many more things besides. So Callum always wanted to take the route down to Cornwall as well. Eventually Simon gave in and laid the track to Saltash, then on a bit more, then it got to Liskeard, and then eventually ended up all the way in Penzance, as you do. And Simon, loves the trackline side, so he really enjoys doing that to the best of his abilities, and it's quick and easy compared to the scenery detail, which it absolutely is. You could lay 50 to 100 miles in a day if you're lucky, if it's really easy stuff. So compared to route building, scenery wise, you'd be lucky to get a mile done in a day if you're doing it really detailed. So that's why Simon says that's why there's so much more track without scenery in the RDC section of BHBP, and he says that will all be filled in one day, as I've already said in this video. So at the moment it says it's reasonably detailed scenery all the way from Reading to just west of Liskeard, and then if you reverse it Exeter you can go all the way to Oakhampton, and then as we said before, all the bits that I previously mentioned, plus a few more bits that are included. So we're just slowing down now for the curves before we get towards Hungerford. Not too far away from there now, on a couple of miles. So we're down to a 90 limit here, and then we'll gradually slow down a bit more as we prepare to stop at Hungerford, and then at the next stop Bedwin. So I'll talk again after we leave Hungerford. So we're going in now to arrive into Bedwin. This is of course is where the well-known Bedwin Flyer service terminates, so you can do services on Martin through just to Bedwin if you want, with 166s should you ever want to drive that. Not that many people will, I admit, but if that takes your fancy then you can do it. So this is where the scenery is starting to get a little bit more hilly again. You can see sort of some hills on the left and right there in a valley. Been around Crofton pumping stations and stuff like that, and then we go up towards Savernake Summit before we then go down to Pewsey and Westbury and into Somerset from Wiltshire. We're in Wiltshire, I believe you're in Wiltshire, Bedwin, maybe not quite, but certainly heading on that way, but not quite. My geography in this area is not brilliant. So we're just coming into Bedwin now. You can see Martin Druitt there on the right side, where the gardens filled with garden sheds and greenhouses and transit vans, watching lines and stuff like that, which is cool. So just coming into stop now. So those bits that you just saw back there were the run through Crofton, so around the pumping station on the sharp curves there, and then also the section into Savernake Summit, so that was where the train went past, which is the summit of the Berks and Hants line. It now goes downhill towards Westbury, and it'll climb up again after that, but that's the summit of the section between Reading and Westbury for certain. So, moving on in Simon's little history, we slow down here for Pewsey stop. This is the last stop before Westbury. So Jeff Harrison introduced himself to Simon around the time he was laying track to Barnstaple on the Oakhampton line as well. And Jeff's got a particular interest in the Barnstaple line. He introduced him to Mike Travers, who was the developer of the glorious Devon route, which some of you may have seen, which is the 1950s and 60s sort of western and southern lines, route from Exeter and Plymouth. It's quite a decent route. And Mike generously shared his glorious 3D Devon 3D assets with the high-speed tracks team. That includes his Meldon Viaduct and Oakhampton Station builder, which are in this route. So that's kind thanks to him for that. And Jeff's also contributed a number of superb scenarios over the year, and he's one of his favourite creators and is building more for the BHBP route. So keep an eye out for those, which will be great to see. Callum then began working on other projects, and RDC became mostly Simon's route again. As many of you know, I think Callum's been working on the recent Peterborough to Cambridge route, so that's where he's obviously been put to good use. And he's still around and is a much valued advisor and friend to Simon and the route as well. So Simon says he's carried on slowly filling in scenery and began a long correspondence with Martin Masterson. It was Martin who first suggested merging RDC with SWE to Reading. So it was Martin that introduced Simon to the incredibly talented Ian Mackay, who has been involved with a lot of merging of routes over the years. And he agreed to actually merge the three routes that have been merged together, or the two routes in theory that have been merged together here, which is fantastic and really massively appreciated, because he's not been given any money, he's not been, he's not got anything out of it really, other than just being very kind enough to do it for them. So that's fantastic. Martin and Ian did most of that work, and around the actual merge, Ian put in a lot of long hours to actually recreate that. And RDC provides the starting point for the combined route, shared with the original Riviera Dart line at Exeter St David's. So we're now heading out on the original South Western Expressways route. Martin's extension ends there at Pewsey, so we're now on the original SWE route as far as Whiteball. So we go through Westbury on this route, Castle Carey, and then Taunton, and then eventually you obviously reach the RDC at Whiteball. Now the intention is, because this is a bit of an older route, the intention is to get this one brought up to the standard of RDC and the SWE to Reading route, and sort of make it so there's none of this changing of styles, and a nice way of saying quality as well at the same time. Make sure that there's none of that sort of changing going on between the three sections is the ideal intention in the end, and I'm sure that'll happen one day. Because at the moment, from a personal standpoint, you sort of can tell when you're going between the three sections. You can see this bit in the middle is not quite as new or as up to scratch as the RDC or SWE to Reading routes. And also, I think it'd be nice to see this track get changed from a personal standpoint, I'm saying, because I think the JT track looks really pretty poor when you compare it even to the AP stuff, which itself isn't brilliant, but this whole JT track, it just looks so poor, and I think it'd be a massive step forward for the route to lose the JT track, and certainly at least be consistent throughout, because the track on the section south of Whiteball is obviously AP track. It makes it a bit pointless having it JT track at this end, I think, but hopefully that can be addressed, and as I say, a scenery upgrade would be more than welcome as well for this section of the route, just to bring it up to modern standards. So next up we get heavily on the brakes here. You can see the sun's rapidly setting in front of us, and it's some really nice lighting actually on this section of the route. I quite enjoyed it. That's me going across the junction just outside Westbury at like 70 mile an hour on a 50 limit, nearly rolling down the banking, but we'll just gloss over that as if I never did it. We'll say Tom had taken over at Pewsey and he was driving that a bit, so we'll just blame him for that. So we're getting a signal check here on the approach into Westbury. Signal indicating there that we're going to cross over on the crossover that's just after the junction. So if you've got the second of those two, you'd be going round towards Bath, or Chippenham if you're going, Chippenham if you're going onto the Swindon line. But we're currently heading into Westbury station. And from here you can use the South Western Expressways route to actually reach Bristol, so you could in theory have turned off there, gone to Bristol via Bath and done whatever you wanted. So it obviously gives you that opportunity, although you already have that opportunity if you own Martin's Freeway route and you don't want to download this full version. You can do that on Martin's Freeway extension of SWE to Reading as well, from Reading to Bristol via Westbury. So Westbury we're coming into now, it's got the yard and everything obviously here. This is all just the original South Western Expressways route that we're coming into at the minute. We're getting checked because of the unit going across just in front of us as an ECS goes out of the yard into a head shunt, then turns back and goes into the station just after we've left, and there's another AI HST actually that we pass in the station. So a good bit of stuff going on here at Westbury at this time of the evening. So heading out away from Westbury. Whilst we've been in there, HST's actually gone past on the main line, so that's overtaken us. We actually get checked by that as well, around the Castle Carey area because of the long sections to Somerton, and also get checked near Tiverton I think through as well, so we sort of follow that all the way through to Exeter. The scenario that I actually made it run about 20 minutes late just so you got a bit of extra AI interaction and stuff like that. Although by the time you're at Exeter you actually depart on time after a 10-minute wait, because in real life the service is booked to sit before it runs ECS from Exeter for about half an hour. So that was quite an interesting thing to do. The next stop then is Castle Carey. You got the climb over Bruton Summit to come, I think it's Bruton Bank or something like that. We go over there and then it's downhill into Castle Carey before we head out towards Somerton and then down onto the Somerset levels before we reach Taunton. I'll read a bit more from Simon's document in a minute about the future of the route, what the intentions are, and where the plan will go from here. We're now descending down into Castle Carey then, so as we're doing this I'll read a bit more about the future of the route and you can learn a bit more about what's to come. So what Simon says in this document, Simon writes that he doesn't plan to continue on a separate development of RDC, so unfortunately that does mean that those that just want the original RDC, it's not going to be available anymore. I don't know if that means that you need more requirements or not. Obviously the requirements for RDC is quite big, and he's well aware of that obviously, Simon, so that would be a bit of a shame obviously if that means the requirements have got even bigger, but that's the price you pay for a inverted commas freeware route. No routes are really free these days, but if you're a freeware developer doing it in your own time, then you do have some restrictions on exactly what you can put in, I suppose. So it's you don't have any custom assets. If you're doing it under a big commercial budget, then obviously you don't need to alias as many things. So unfortunately the requirements list is what it is. If you want a route with less requirements, get Western Main Lines. Obviously you won't get this bit, but you'll get the bit to Cornwall, stuff like that. Personal opinion, I think this in Devon certainly is better quality, and I think Cornish section as well for that matter as well, but yeah, if you want to just get a route with less requirements, I would point you in the direction of Western Main Lines, certainly, and it's still a decent enough route for driving down to Cornwall. You get the full entire thing from Paddington right through to Penzance, full with scenery as well, so that's, you know, well worth investing in if you haven't already. So in terms of what the future holds, Simon intends to, you know, the main priority is to get the scenery into Cornwall, finish the Cornish mainline scenery. Currently that ends at Liskeard. So west of Liskeard there's not that much done. You've got the section to Liskeard all the way from Plymouth is done, and then there's a big gap from there to Par. The bit from Par to St Austell is done, and then there's another big gap down to Truro. The bit from Truro to Redroof is done, and I think Simon's currently working down towards Camborne area, I think, and Hale and towards St Earth eventually, which will then get him near to Penzance, and then there won't actually really be that much to do. He's got the gaps to fill obviously, which will take some time, particularly the bit through the valley to Bodmin. That'll take a lot of time I imagine, because it's such a crazy section. I know when I was doing that on Cornish Main Line for JT, and I did the valley from Bodmin up to Liskeard, I redid the entire thing, and that took 3 weeks of full-time days to do that, so I have no doubts that's going to be difficult and a long time in process, but I'm quite excited to see what it looks like when it's done, because I know he's quite keen on doing valleys and stuff. He does a great job like we did with Lou. So in no particular priority order, the future of the route. So this is just, you know, the things that Simon's listed as they're coming to his head as he wants to do them. So keeping the route up to date with new developments, as they've done in this one. You've got the example being the seawall at Dawlish and the new signalling track layout at Bristol have included. So you got those. So the seawall at Dawlish, for those that don't know, they've got rid of the stone seawall that was on the the Kennaway Tunnel side of the station in real life, so they've replaced that with a concrete one. So his best of his ability, Simon's put that in to the new route, so that's interesting to see. Certainly a different approach to the Riviera line, which obviously shows it as it was previously. And then Simon wants to improve the scenery between Taunton and Pewsey, and Taunton, Bristol, Bath and Westbury, and that'll take a long time. That'll be incremental, it says in the document here. And I've sort of outlined that already, that there is intentions to improve the scenery across the entire South Western Expressways route, but that'll take a long time to do. Then it says complete the Falmouth branch scenery, that's on the list. Complete the scenery between Copplestone and Barnstaple, that again will be looking good to that. Looking forward to that. For those that are interested in a Barnstaple route, I think DP Simulation have still got a version on their website that's quite decent. And then complete the scenery between Honiton and Exminster. Complete the South Devon Railway. Add the Fowey and Newquay branches, which will be cool. Certainly to go to Newquay, because you'll be able to go right through to there in one trot from Reading. Then the Plym Valley Railway, which is a tiny little preserve railway near Plymouth. And then it says Linton and Barnstaple Railway, that'll be an interesting one. I wasn't even aware that that was on the priority list. And then he may add the Plym Go to Boscawen Freight branch, that's the Park and Dillock branch, I believe. Now, I would really love to see that, so please do that, Simon, that'd be awesome. But yeah, he admits on the document that maybe that's more than maybe rather than definite, because there'll be a lot of work and there's not much return really for that, because it's a line that not that many people will ever use, and that's quite rare. Although I think the scenarios based off of Pardo and clay trips would be pretty decent. Slight issue being that we don't have any clay wagons really, but modern ones anyway, sort of got a V-skin that Richard Fletcher did, but not really anything you can use much. So, and then lastly, he sort of adds in his document, his current standard of scenery is start that sentence again. His current standard of scenery is pretty high, with immersive levels of close to track scenery. He's not sure he has the balance right between detail and frame rates. It's a never-ending compromise, and I add to that you're always learning as well. And the downside for Simon is how long it takes to complete a mile track. And lastly, he says that, and I want to make sure I add this in as well, it's been a long RDC tradition that anyone that wants to can get in touch and ask for their avatar to be placed in its appropriate points in the route. Basically, you can have a person placed, not a person that looks like you, but a person placed that you want to have be seen in the route. And they can have standing and sitting male and female people, and that can represent anyone, anywhere on the route, your houses or anything else that people would like to be able to. All of that Simon asked for to do that is a donation to the Force Cancer Charity in Exeter. People want themselves a loved one or people who want themselves a loved one or a loved place to be included in the route should get in touch with Simon via the High Speed Tracks page on Facebook, and you can get your avatar added in. I know a few people have already done that before, which is pretty cool. So we just passed through Colton Junction in that last clip, now we're heading into Taunton. We've got one more stop at Everton Parkway after Taunton. Taunton's the last station we stop at on South Western Expressways. From here we go up Whiteball, and the actual merge point between the South Western Expressways with the Reading extension added on merges into railways at Devon and Cornwall halfway through Whiteball Tunnel. So you'll see the track change in there, and then you head down through Devon into Exeter from there actually. So it's around here where we start to see the scenery change. You'll see as we go up to Whiteball it changes to like hills and all sorts going on, so very much different to what you have up at the east end where we've been going a lot of level scenery for quite a long way. This is where we suddenly hit the hills. So we're back again now on the final climb up to Whiteball, just passing through Wellington. This is where, in the other direction, City of Truro did 100 miles an hour, 102, I think it was 102.4 miles an hour back in 1904, sorry. So this is with the first official, I should say unofficial, 100 miles an hour running on British Railways, happened on British Railways network, under the GWR, with City of Truro pulling the Ocean Mail service. So that came down here at 100 mile an hour back in 1904. I can't imagine how rough that must have been in the cab, considering as well it's not exactly a straight track. So that must have been pretty rough running down this hill. So yeah, we're on the final sort of assault now. We're doing full throttle on the 1 in 90 or so climb. It heads up to Whiteball. The way you can tell where the merge points on this route are is by where there's groups of builders. So as we go into Whiteball Tunnel, you'll see like a group of railway engineers, all in full high-vis gear. They're where they tell you where the merge points of the routes are. I think there's 3 in total, but this is the most notable one because this is where we actually change completely. You'll see the scenery completely change as we head along here. I'm not sure why there's a bridge missing there. I need to work that out. I think that was my system rather than the route, so you shouldn't find that actually in the route that you get. I was on a beta version at this point because I had to get it all recorded in time. So yeah, you'll see as we come through the tunnel, the track will change, and it'll actually go underground very, very slightly because the AP track sits at a different height to the JT old track. And one thing to notice as well, if you look how close the rails are, I only learnt this the other day, but if you look how close the rails are on this version, we've just gone onto the new scenery now, heading into Whiteball Tunnel. If you look how close the rails are on this side of the tunnel, then look how close they are on the other side of the tunnel, and you'll see how Simon actually does the proper gauging of the GWR, so where the tracks on GWR are actually wider than the standard sort of 2-track width in terms of how far the central point is between each track. And I guess that's because of broad gauge and the fact that I had more space to play with, but I don't know that. I'm completely guessing as to why that is, but that is the case. You can see it sort of now as we just come out. You can sort of see now on the new track, the AP track, and as we go into this curve you should see that the tracks are now further apart than what they were before in the middle, and that's a little cool feature that I know Simon's done. So now we're heading down and we're going down Whiteball. The sun's completely set now, we're heading towards Everton Parkway. That's our final stop before we get to Exeter. So now we're heading, we've just gone through Stoke Cannon, we're heading down towards Exeter St David's. We'll come across Cowlow Bridge Junction, which is where the line to Exeter, to Barnstaple, and also with full scenery in this game to Oakhampton is the way you can go to in this route. Eventually, obviously, as I said earlier, you'll be able to go to Barnstaple, but at the moment it only goes to Copplestone, I believe, where the scenery ends. So yeah, that's where the junction for that line is. And then we come into Exeter St David's, and that's where this service terminates. I was going from I used Fair Locate for the timings, and that was June 2018, I believe. I can't exactly what date it was actually, but yeah, I think it says on the scenario somewhere what the date was. Because all the HSTs and stuff that you pass are actually, as far as possible, the correct workings for that day in terms of what you see, in terms of the power cars that are on them and stuff like that. So I tried to do that as best I could. So we're heading down across Cowlow Bridge Junction, past the Riverside Yard, which unfortunately these days is empty because there doesn't really seem to be much going on there these days. In the old days, obviously, it was quite a busy area with Exeter City Base and the cement place up at Exeter Central, and there was a coal yard at Exmouth Junction as well back in the day. These days there's not much, but China clay trains and stuff do lay over here, and I think there's a stone train comes from, I think it comes from Westbury, comes into here, so you do get the odd bit, and then you obviously got Exeter New Yard on the left, So this train goes into platform 6 at Exeter because it terminates here, and then it becomes 3C93, which is an ECS down to Plymouth. So you get about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes at Exeter for do whatever you want, go for a cup of tea or something. Or you can just use async keys. Just search async keys train simulator on Google and you'll find ways to make game go faster in long station stops and stuff like that. I wanted to keep it all as one scenario so it were all in one sort of thing, rather than splitting it. Certainly as these are the ones that were going to be included with the view, I felt it was only right to keep it so you could go all the way in one scenario. So we stop here for about 10 minutes, I think it's 9:48 or something like that, the road clears. You follow a Voyager through to Plymouth then, which holds you up a bit on the long sections over the Devon banks as well, which is cool because it means you have to get held up a bit. And that was the intention, to make it so there was, it wasn't just like a open the power, shut the power, open the power, shut the power. So you actually had to do some, you know, braking around AI services and stuff like that, so that was why I did that. So hopefully you enjoyed those few shots there going through the countryside and along the Seam Hall and everything. We got the signal stop at the bottom of Rattery Bank as well. That's because we were following the Voyager. The sections in between the signals are really long on that section between Totnes and Plymouth. Again, another feature of this route in terms of you come all the way from Reading and it's really fast and everything, and then you get to Devon and you're basically in semaphore signal sections. It's not semaphore signal, but it's just two aspect signals in a long section. So we've just been waiting outside Plymouth North Road there. That's an HST that works out of Paynton with a stopping service on an evening, having come from London, goes to Newton Abbot, then it runs ECS from Newton Abbot to Lara, comes into Plymouth Station, then reverses as we've just seen. So that's just reversed there at Plymouth. We've now got the road to go to platform 6 in Plymouth Station, then we'll change ends and then we go into Lara as well. But we wait for a service from Gunners Lake to Exeter, the Gunners Lake unit going back basically to Exeter Depot. That goes before we can go all the way through back to Lara Depot. So I'll bring this video to an end. It's a good job I did edit this down, because there's no way we could have done the entire journey in one video. It would have been like a 3-hour video. It's long enough as it is. So we bring this video to a close. Now we're coming into Labour Depot. We turn right and go around the really sharp curve and drop down and terminate the scenario there. Do hope you've enjoyed watching this video, guys. Don't forget this route, the Berks and Hants route, Bristol to Penzance route, will replace the railways of Devon and Cornwall route. Not sure if it's going to do that with South Western Expressways to Reading yet. I don't think that's the plan. But the railways of Devon and Cornwall won't be updated separately. This will be where the updates to that route happen from now on, so you'll need this one to get those updates. And it'll be available from, as I've kept saying, it'll be available from Alan Thompson Sim, Vulcan Productions and On Track Simulation. There'll be a link in the description when it's available, and we'll also be posting it on social media, so don't forget to check out our Facebook page, but also On Track Simulation, VP, all that stuff, and the High Speed Tracks team as well. They have their own Facebook page, and you can keep up to date there with the release information. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Don't forget to check us out on Twitch as well. Tom's often on there. That's twitch.tv/trainsim_TV. And please do like, comment, subscribe. Always appreciate that. Thanks very much for watching, guys. See you later. Bye.